most exciting, the most compelling, the sport with the most energized fans. By far. Football. Some call it soccer, and this show lives and breathes it. Welcome to the Saucy Football Breakdown. We'll dive deep into the world of soccer. Bring you bite-sized stories that bring you closer to the strategy, the tactics, and behind-the-scenes narratives that shape the game. Discussions, debates, opinions, scouting, analytics, and a perspective beyond common sense and what meets the eye. Let's do it. Welcome in to the Saucy Football Breakdown. And now your host, Michael Nance.
Hello, Saucy football fans. Welcome back to another episode of Saucy Football Breakdown Podcast. I'm your host, Michael. Thank you for tuning in. And today's episode, we're going to talk about Mudryk and some of his struggles at Stamford Bridge and why you should really be a little bit more patient with the guy, as he's still got a lot of learning and playing left to do. So if you're excited about that, stick around because I got something good for you. So, in the world of football, numbers tell a story. Mudryk's stats are, let's face it, they're stark. They're not good. In his 8 starts, he's got 813 minutes, 0 goals, and sadly, just 2 assists. Chelsea's fans expected fireworks when Chelsea beat Arsenal to sign the young Ukrainian talent in the January transfer window last year. But here's the question that haunts the Stamford Bridge faithful, myself included. And, that is, can Mudryk find his stride and prove his worth? It's a conundrum as intricate as the gears in a watch. We'll all just have to wait and see. This conundrum is as crucial as a penalty kick in a championship match. So, the stage is set. The spotlight shines on a young player who arrived in England with a lot of high expectations. Rightly so, because he was a guy who arrived with a massive reputation. He was a very young, talented player, and Chelsea fans should have been excited to sign the guy. But somewhere between the, let's call it, euphoria of his signing and the reality of his actual performances on the pitch, something has gotten lost in translation. And this is the tale of Mudryk, a prodigy who now stands at a crossroads. So let's really unravel the enigma of Mudryk's journey. The journey begins with the timing of his transfer. Imagine a car that's revving its engine after a long winter break. Mudryk faced a similar challenge, in my opinion, and Chelsea needed an instant impact when they signed him, but he was that car that was just starting up after a break. He required a reboot. He needed to run for a little while, but Chelsea couldn't afford to wait. Chelsea's turbulent season also did not help matters. I mean, that last year was a disaster class. Mudryk was tossed into a sea of constant change, with managers coming and going like ships in the night. And the language barrier also added another layer of complexity to everything else that he had going on. Yet, it's also essential to remember that Mudryk is not just a player. He is also a human being, a real person who is miles away from home, and he is concerned about the turmoil that constantly goes on in his homeland. Just because the stuff that's going on in Ukraine isn't in the news does not mean that anyone who is Ukrainian can't still be affected by it. And let's face it, how well would you perform, let alone at your best, when the world that you are, or the world you come from, is engulfed in so much conflict? And then there's the gym. He's a committed dude. And some say too much. The guy is always working on sculpting his physique, like a marble statue even. It's his way of preparing for battle, and even his dedication there has limits. But, I feel like that's something that When you are in an unfamiliar situation or an uncomfortable situation, you look for the little things that you can control. And I think working out is something that he does feel like he can control. But to that end, Chelsea had to intervene, telling him to actually ease off the weights just a little bit. And to me, what that says is that's really a glimpse into Mudryk's relentless pursuit of improvement. And to me, that's a trait that should actually be admired. And he's also a gamer. The gaming world offers him some solace, and it's a place to connect worldwide, not just with fans, but some of his friends back home in Ukraine. And it's a lifeline to some normalcy in the sea of chaos, which he has to navigate every day, being a Chelsea player. And then you also had to think about, too, when he dropped down to represent the Ukraine's U21 team at the beginning of the summer. It really wasn't a sign of his ego or anything like that, but it was more of a desire for him to get some game time and then gain some confidence in his abilities. The summer breeze seemed to breathe life into him, but then again, the English Premier League, as soon as that season started up, he he started facing some struggles all over again. And so goes the Premier League, in my opinion. But the weight of his transfer fee, it also hangs over his head. It's not something that people will let him forget. And it's essential to remember that these figures come with some caveats. In my opinion, he didn't ask Chelsea to spend that money on him to sign him. They identified him as a guy they wanted, and they went and spent the money to go get him. His experience in professional football is also still really, really relatively low. And that also explains why he's a work in progress. I mean, the dude's, like I said, he's on the under 21 squad. So he is, in my opinion, a kid. He's got a lot of growing left to do, especially as a person and a player. But, there's still some hope because his teammates still see potential. They're the ones on the training ground with him every day. And even Ben Chilwell, who's the vice captain, he's said in interviews publicly that he has faith in Mudryk's ability. He said the only thing that he sees is that Mudryk needs to fine-tune some of his decision-making. And once he can dial that in, that'll put him at the top of the performances that he needs to be at. But it's also a learning curve that every single young player must navigate. So, as we contemplate the complex narratives of Mykhailo Mudryk, let's also remember this, though. It's a story that's still being written and is far from over. As I said, the dude is young, real, real young. And his journey is one of determination and adaptation. And it's also a journey that you could be a part of, because I'm going to cover it here on this podcast whenever I get the chance. Whenever a new chapter of this story unfolds, you can expect me to cover it here because I am definitely rooting for the guy. So stay tuned for the next chapter in Mudryk's football journey. Will he rise to the occasion? Can he silence some of the doubters? Join me as you and we dive deeper together into the world of Mykhailo Mudryk and discover the transformation that may yet come to pass. This is a story that's far from over, and you do not want to miss a single moment of it. And with that, I'm going to leave you. I want to thank you again for tuning in to the Saucy Football Breakdown podcast. I'd love to hear from you. Please leave a review wherever you listen to your podcast. And you can interact with me on social media as well at Saucy Breakdown. That's Instagram. That's Twitter. I don't have a TikTok, but I'm also on Threads at Saucy Breakdown. So please come say hello. And thank you for listening. Have a good one.
You've been listening to the Saucy Football Breakdown. Let's face it, soccer is the biggest sport on the planet right now, and it's our passion to bring you closer to the game. Soccer stories, tactics, behind the scenes, analytics, team building, scouting. We've got it all. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Saucy Breakdown.